Hello, welcome to the June invitation to join in and get creative on burythegiant.club. This month, we're going to be introducing our Mossy carpet, which is our new mass participation artwork. Naomi's actually going to wear it for us here. At this stage, she's able to do that. We've started working on it over the last couple of months with a variety of communities and people, individuals on the moor, up in London with thousands of school children, testing it out as an activity. And we would love to invite you and your community, your family, your friends, your work colleagues to get involved and join in. This is the beginning of a mega project. So we're anticipating this hopefully taking off, everyone getting involved, and it taking on for the next 3 years or so. I think that we'll go across to the video now, which we recorded recently in Exeter with Jim from Photo Now. And then we'll kind of pop back in again in a minute live, as it were, and answer some questions and have a look at the carpet so far.
Hello, we're part of the Art and Energy Collective, and we make mass participation artworks inspired by nature for a brighter, greener future. A mass participation artwork is a piece of art that's been made by lots of people working together, and we hope you'll join us in helping us make our new piece called the Mossy Carpet, which will celebrate all the tiny actions we're taking together in response to the climate and ecological emergencies.
We would like you to make a mossy pom-pom or textile tuft and to record a message sharing a tiny thing you're already doing to make a better world. Your tufts and messages will be woven into the mossy carpet. Over time, we want it to grow to give each other hope that we can all work together to make a difference.
So this 10-metre roll is the beginning of the piece, but we hope to make it much, much bigger. With your help, it could be 30 or 50 metres or even longer. It would be great if you could help by getting your friends involved too.
The first thing that we'd like you to do is to look at moss. You can find moss everywhere, growing in the cracks of the pavement to all the way up on the high moorlands. Look at the way it grows, the different colours, its amazing shapes and the feel of it. We've been so inspired discovering all sorts of things about moss. It's the first plant to have populated the land 450 million years ago, and after devastation it's the first plant to bring abundance back to abandoned places. It nurtures all of life, providing a home for all sorts of wildlife, and it's used by lots of animals to make their nests and dens warm and clean. Despite being tiny, it's one of the most important plants. It purifies the air and it buries the carbon, which is the cause of climate change, and it also reduces flooding after storms.
After you've had a good look at the moss, then it's time to get making your textile piece. You could choose to make a pom-pom, to knit, to crochet, or to embroider. There are lots of techniques you could use to create something inspired by the moss. It can be something really simple or experimental, it's up to you. Use what you've already got to make your textile tuft. You don't need to go and buy something new. And if you don't have anything at home, then check out your local scrap store or charity shop first. Your materials don't need to be green. Use the ones you've got to hand and give them a new lease of life. Your small textile creation will represent you and your positive action for the planet on this mega carpet. You can post it to us at the Art and Energy Collective, PO Box 961, Exeter, EX1 9DF.
As you've seen, mosses are very small and they each do something tiny that nurtures all of life, and together they make a big difference for our world. Now, deep in the moss forests live amazing creatures called tardigrades. They are awesome. They live in harmony with the mossy world they inhabit. When the mosses dry out, they do too, only to come back to life with the moss. They can survive being frozen, and they've even been in space. Here's a giant tardigrade that we've made. It's very round and it has 8 legs and a tiny snout. Some people call it a moss piglet or a water bear. Now, we'd like you to pick up the phone and tell the tardigrade what tiny thing you're doing for a brighter, greener future.
So, in amongst your mossy textile pieces, we'll be adding some e-textile elements. These will act as sensors, setting off audio kits which will play your audio messages. So when you stroke the carpet, this is how your message will play when it's added to the carpet. You'll be able to hear some of the amazing things that we're all doing together to make a difference.
You can make your textile pieces on your own with friends or family or your community group, and you can find resources to support this on our website. Now, we know that many people feel like it doesn't matter what they do, and it can be hard to have conversations about climate change and biodiversity loss. Sometimes we don't even know that our friends and neighbours are already doing amazing things. So let's celebrate our mossy world by making this artwork. We'll be sharing our actions and ideas and giving hope for a brighter, greener future.
We can't wait to see your creations and hear your messages. Thank you for showing you care.
So that's available on our website. And we'd love it if you fancied sharing it on to other people to get involved. As you saw, in some ways, I think it's a fairly straightforward invitation to make your textile piece, send it to us, and send in your message as well, and have those conversations whilst you're making. Naomi, next to her, has the carpet, or the beginning of the carpet. So we were just going to have a quick look and see the sort of things that have already been added to that. Now, when we say pom-poms, that includes sort of rounder pom-poms as we're used to seeing, but it also involves quite tufty, simple pom-poms that you can make around your fingers. We can run through how to do that in a moment, maybe. We've also got some knitting on there. And when we talk about knitting, we've had people contact us saying how big and what sort of pattern. But what we'd really like to encourage people to do is to have some fun. So that there is a little bit of moss stitch. I've quite been enjoying just picking up those random little bits of balls of wool that you have left over after you've done a project, and having a play with increasing, decreasing, knit and purl and so on. There's some crochet there that Naomi was looking at then. So it's similar with that. It can be a piece of knitting or crochet that lays flat onto the carpet and we stitch it on flat, or it can be something that's got a bit more shape and a bit more structure to it. With all sorts. And again, using up those different colours, just having some fun with it, really. So as you can see, there are lots of different colours going on.
It's a bit directly onto the backing. Now, the backing of this mossy carpet here is from Dartmoor sheep. It's the fleece that would otherwise have been thrown away, and the fleece was gathered, 5 tons of it, and it was sent up to Yorkshire to the mills to be scoured, felted, and attached to a big piece of hessian, so that it's a bit like a felty. I don't want to make you feel woozy but can you see there, fleece with a bit of hessian in the middle. And this material, it's 1 metre wide and 10 meters long on rolls, and we've kindly been given some to start this project off, but it was originally made to act as a tree guard for new trees being planted, so to keep like a bit like a mulch. So it's just amazing that they've created this fabric to use in different ways on the moor, but luckily for us, they've let us start our mossy carpet on it, and since it's reflecting Dartmoor and all its different mosses, it just seemed, to begin with anyway, it just seemed like very appropriate. Is there anything else on here, Jenny, that you would like me to show?
So you were showing the embroidery just now. When you send your separate pieces in, then we will stitch those on. We'll be doing some of that, and then we're also hoping to be able to invite people to come and join us doing that, so that it's a group activity with yet more conversation around those tiny moss-like actions whilst we're doing it. The other option that you have is to work onto a piece of fabric. If you would like to create a mossy patch yourself, or if you're working with a group that you would like to send in a larger section that's already pre-sewn on, then you'd be very, very, very welcome to do that. We'd really love that to happen. So I've got here a section which I was having a bit of a play with yesterday. We'll switch the
Time off.
yeah. So this one here is probably about 60 centimeters by about 25 centimeters, something like that. And it's just an offcut of fabric that I had in my box of textile bits. I think it's some sort of upholstery fabric, but you could do it on an old pillowcase or a bit of old t-shirt or something, whatever fabric you've got to hand, really. And then you're able to start adding on your pom-poms if you're making as a group. I've also done a little bit of embroidery there and a little bit of knitting. I don't really know how to crochet, so that's something that I'm quite looking forward to doing. With the knitting, I've been having fun with mixing up the needle sizes, for example. So I've got quite a big needle size that I've been mixing in and just having a play to see what happens. And then there's a bit of embroidery there. Now, all of the wool that we're using, Naomi said about the backing fabric that she was showing you just now, that is all natural from Dartmoor. The pieces that we're adding on top, all the materials we've been using for our workshops have come from Plymouth Scrap Store or Exeter Scrap Store. So this is all wool, a mixture of wool, which otherwise could very easily have gone in the bin. It's offcuts people have got left from projects or oddballs or all sorts of different bits and pieces. And we'd really encourage you to do that. As we said in the video, rather than going out and buying a brand new ball of wool, have a look and see what you've got. It might be that you've got a jumper that you don't really like anymore or is coming to pieces, and you can unravel a bit of that. So if you're a younger person, or then check with the grown-ups first. But that we are surrounded by resources which are can be used for this kind of thing. So we'd really recommend that you go and check out scrap stores. If you haven't got a scrap store close to you, check out the charity shops. They often have odd bits and pieces crafting wise for wool, and also on the carpet that is behind Naomi there, I think there are some really unusual bits of fabric and yarn as well, with some more kind of plasticky offcuts, which it's plastic, but actually it's great that it's being used for something. The bit that Naomi's tweaking there is like a offcut from some netting, which I think is probably a factory offcut. From a scrap store always has bins and bins full of it.
Pom-poms being made with and textile tufts being made with bits of old clothing and things, denim and shirting and dresses. But I can also imagine a group of quite serious knitters and spinners spinning their own real wool from sheep's fleece that they happen to have. Because so many farmers, they get very little money for their fleeces, and they do get thrown away or burnt, and it's a complete
waste, because wool is such a fantastic medium for all sorts of things. In fact, we've been asked, can we find a supply of fleece for people to use as their garden compost or mulch, you know, and there must be out there loads of fleeces that would otherwise be thrown away. So we'll see how it goes. What about the tardigrade? We've got some old postcards that we're using at events to print off the Tell the Tardigrade. There's the telephone number. It's on our film. The telephone number with the voicemail. But the sorts of things people have been saying have varied from, I don't know, using a scooter to get to school as part of their getting to school rather than go in a car, you know, that whole active travel tiny thing. But if all children did that, or if even 20% of children did that, it would help the roads around schools massively. So things like that, but they get more complicated. You know, different ways people have been using waste food and sharing food. They've been recycling and upcycling clothes and mending things. You know, there's a whole range. I don't really want to give you a shopping list of things that you could choose to write about, or rather to phone us up and tell us. But this is a little box for you to sort of think about it first if you wanted to read something on the tardigrade telephone.
And that stamp will be available as part of a A4 activity sheet on our website. So we will be adding on resources. And so if there's something that you think would be really useful for you, your family, your friends, your group to get involved, then do let us know, because we would love to be able to add to those resources to make it as useful. If the chances are, if you would like that, then somebody else, it would be useful for them as well. So for example, with the Moths to a Flame project, we found community groups really enjoyed having a very simple to print poster with a gap for them to handwrite in their time and place of them having their moth making activity. So in terms of the moth making activity, I think we'll probably have similar. I might just run through how to make a very simple pom-pom. So Naomi and I spent a week with lots and lots of school children and community members up in London recently, making some quite straightforward pom-poms. We were using a piece of offcut of waste plastic, but actually you can do it using your hand just by having the wool. So I'm pinching the end of the wool. This is a bit of a scrappy what's left from a ball of wool. I do wonder what was knitted in that lovely bright orange, although I'm wearing bright yellow. So hold the end of the wool between your thumb and your first finger, and keeping your fingers quite loose so that it doesn't get too tight. Gonna wrap it around and around. Gonna go for about 20 times. Do a few more. Then I'm taking a pair of scissors and cutting off a nice long tail. Actually, I'm left-handed. I should have done it with this hand. So I've switched it over to the other hand. I'm taking the end of the ball of wool and I'm going to wrap that all the way around all of the wool that's kind of on that reel, and poke it back through the loop that I've made there to make a knot. I'm going to do that 3 times. Getting a muddle now. Pulling it nice and tight to make sure that the wool stays. So I've got my kind of figure of 8 there with a nice tight knot in the middle. And I'm going to take my scissors and snip through each side. And that gives me a nice tufty pom-pom. Now the first 1 or 2 you make might feel a little bit fiddly, but once you've made 1 or 2, then they suddenly become quite quick and easy. And then it's a great thing to be able to do whilst having conversations, whilst chatting about those small actions that you might be taking. You can make bigger ones and smaller ones, and yeah, mix up the colours, take 2 or 3 different colours at a time and wrap them around and have great fun that way.
Yeah,
They look quite good when they're put together.
sizes, and there's sphagnum moss, which grows over the peatlands, makes peat, sequesters carbon, stores water, makes oxygen, purifies the air, generally rescues our world, or tries to on its own. That sphagnum moss is referred to as pom-pom moss because the very end of it looks like a pom-pom. And I know we've said this before many times to some people, but in a way, that's why we're making pom-poms on this carpet. It's all celebrating all those small actions that the pom-pom mosses have made out in the wild on the moors. So I hope that you would really love to join in with this project and making the carpet and celebrating your small actions. And we look forward to receiving them in the post, emailing your inquiries if you've got any. And yeah, I mean, beginning of a very exciting period and a very big project that we hope will grow and grow, literally. Thank you.
Fab. See you next month.